Hi, everyone. Thank you so much for joining us today. My name is Carlene Spry. I am the awards administrator for the Golden Crown Literary Awards, and I want to welcome you to the first ever series of Goldie Finalist Spotlights. Now, for those of you who are new to the Golden Crown Literary Society, the GCLS recognizes and rewards quality literary works about women who love women. And we provide learning opportunities, encouragement, and assistance to new and established writers. We have a highly respected writing academy, an annual gathering of hundreds of readers, writers, publishers, and editors. That's our annual conference. It's coming up this July. And we have a monthly GCLS members-only online book club. So we invite you to learn more about the GCLS and perhaps even become a member by visiting our website at www.goldencrown.org. Now, there are just a few housekeeping items before we get started. We will have some time at the end of the session for Q&A. We'll get to as many questions as we can, and I really hope that you guys have lots of questions. Be sure to use the Zoom Q&A box to submit a question. Now, if you run into technical issues, please log out of this webinar and then log back in. That usually resolves most of the issues. Now, we are very excited to have IReadIndies.com as our sponsor today. IReadIndies.com is excited to congratulate the Goldie Award finalists on their accomplishments, and they welcome all of our event attendees today. Now, in case you haven't heard, IReadIndies.com is a newly established collaboration of over 50 independent authors of women-loving women literature. Their mission is to bring more visibility and recognition to any who put their time, effort, and resources into self-publishing their work. So visit iReadIndies.com to see what you've been missing. Thank you so much, IReadIndies. We certainly do appreciate your support. So that does it for our announcements. Let's go ahead and get started, and I'm going to introduce all of our authors today. We have Fiona Riley, who will be reading from her contemporary romance long novels finalist, Bet Against Me, which was published by Bold Strokes Books. And we have Sandra Barrett's book, Eye of the Damned, which is a finalist in science fiction fantasy and is published by Bedazzled, Inc. Lily Charles, the duo that is Lily Charles, will share a selection from Murder at the Estate Sale, which is published by Black Opal Books, and is a finalist in the mystery crime thriller category. And Clare Ashton is reading from her self-published book, Finding Jessica Lambert, which is a finalist in the contemporary romance long novels category, as well as the Anne Bannon Popular Choice category. So welcome, everyone. Yay. We're going to go ahead now and get started with Miss Fiona, and the floor is yours, ma'am.
Hi, for those of you who don't know me, my name is Fiona Riley. I write contemporary lesbian romance with Bold Strokes Books, and today I'm going to be reading from my book, Bet Against Me. Bet Against Me is a book that is a rivals to lovers story, and it takes place in Boston between two realtors who are they're luxury realtors. They sell high-end luxury apartments, and they get involved in this really competitive bet for Realtor of the Year. And these two women, Trina Lee and Kendall Yates, loathe each other. Their chemistry and ferocity is severe. And I think now at this point in the book where I'm going to be reading the scene, they're starting to realize that some of that chemistry may actually be a little bit of sexual tension in addition to loathing. So I'm going to read a scene from a locker room of the country club where Trina has just come back from playing a game of golf with one of the members, and Kendall happens to walk in. Kendall leaned against the wall behind her, watching for a moment before she finally spoke. I didn't know you remembered here. Trina jumped. She spun on the spot, her hand on her chest. The startled look on her face faded, and that familiar, taunting smile appeared as she replied, I didn't know you were a stalker. I'm not, Kendall pretended to examine her manicure. I'm here on business. So am I. Trina crossed her arms over her chest, and Kendall noticed the swell of her breasts under the tight fabric of her shirt. Then you're not a member? Because it sure seemed that way. Kendall nodded in the direction of that Bertie disappeared in. Seems like you have a regular golf partner. Trina uncrossed her arms and took a seemingly casual step towards her. Not a member, just using a guest pass. The weather was too good to pass up swinging the clubs today. Kendall gave her a once-over. A golfer, huh? That seems like too slow an activity for you. I never pegged you as a golfer. I play for leisure and business, not for exercise. And you've never pegged me. But I'm glad to know you think about it, Trina replied, and Kendall felt herself blush. That's not what I meant. Kendall sputtered. Trina looked like she was enjoying herself. Kendall tried to step back as Trina stepped into her space, but the wall behind her made her stop short. The smirk on Trina's face indicated that she'd noticed. And since we're on the topic, I'm not so sure why you're under the false impression that I would be the one being pegged and not doing the pegging. Trina's face was inches from hers, and Kendall squirmed on the spot, not just from the closeness. Well, maybe the closeness was a factor because Trina looked delectable in this golfing outfit, but that what Trina was saying was making Kendall, well, hot. You just keep underestimating me, and maybe you shouldn't. At this close range, Kendall could smell the faint scent of sunblock on Trina's face and something sweet like perfume with just the hint of sweat. It was pleasant. It reminded her of summer. She licked her lips, and Trina smiled. As much fun as this is, Trina stepped back and Kendall started to exhale. I have to shower before I meet my client, so if you'll excuse me, I'll be getting naked at the locker in a moment and rinsing off around the corner. Kendall's attempt at a controlled exhale failed, and she coughed. Trina's statement almost sounded like an invitation. Good luck with that. Kendall was amazed she'd managed to get out any word at all. Trina didn't hesitate in her response. I don't need luck. I'm pretty adept at getting wet and lathering myself, but thank you for the well wishes. Kendall had to laugh. She'd practically fallen into that one. With your meeting. Good luck with your meeting, I should have clarified. Thanks, Trina said as she pulled her shirt up and off, exposing a matching light pink sports bra. Kendall did her best not to stare at the lithe, beautiful body that had been silhouetted and was now missing a shirt. But it was a fruitless battle. Trina was as attractive nearly naked as she was fully dressed. Kendall averted her eyes when Trina continued to strip in front of her, something that she had a feeling was slower and more intentional than it would have been had Kendall not been there. Kendall's suit jacket pocket vibrated, and she jumped at the sensation. She placed her hand along the outside of the pocket to still the phone, but her jolting motion must have drawn Trina's attention. No phones in here, Kendall. It's against club policy, Trina said, and Kendall hazarded a glance in her direction. Trina was wrapped in a soft, luxurious-looking towel with the country club's logo on it. She closed her locker and stepped back into Kendall's space. Kendall was frozen on the spot. The desire to reach out and trace her fingers along Trina's naked shoulder was almost unignorable. Who's calling this time, I wonder? Trina asked as she looked up at her with a mischievous expression. Kendall felt herself shudder when Trina reached into her pocket and withdrew her phone. Kendall glanced down at the phone's screen, but allowed herself the opportunity to appreciate Trina's cleavage. Being taller than Trina certainly had its benefits. Oh, it's your friend Margot, Trina said with a smile. She held the phone out for Kendall to take. Oh, you're not just going to answer it? Kendall was joking. She could feel the heat emanating off Trina's body against her own, and though she probably should have left a long time ago, she didn't feel the need to move out of this spot or this proximity. Trina raised an eyebrow in her direction before sliding her thumb against the glass face of Kendall's phone, answering the call. She brought the phone to her ear but kept those gorgeous brown eyes locked on Kendall's. Kendall let herself get lost in them for a while Trina talked. Hey, Margot, it's Trina. Trina spoke softly into the phone, and Kendall could have sworn she'd stepped even closer. Kendall was only barely aware of what Trina was saying because she was captivated by the pink gloss on Trina's lips and the way those lips moved as they formed words. What the words were, Kendall found that she didn't really care. I'll tell her. Thanks, Margot. Have a good day. Trina disconnected the call and slipped Kendall's phone back into her pocket. She pressed her palm against the fabric and Kendall reflexively grabbed her wrist. What did she have to say? Kendall asked as she stroked her thumb along the inside of Trina's wrist. Trina didn't pull back at the touch. Instead, to Kendall's libido's delight, she reached out with her other hand and pulled at the bottom hem of her suit jacket, lightly grazing the front of her thigh in the process. Kendall's clit throbbed with want. She said to have you call her later, when you weren't busy, Trina replied, not breaking eye contact. Am I busy? Kendall pulled Trina by the wrist, bringing their chests together. Do you want to be? Trina asked as she licked her lips, and Kendall needed to taste them. Yes, Kendall answered honestly. She wanted to be busy with Trina's lips on her mouth and her fingers on her body, exploring and pleasuring her. She wanted to taste the smell of summer on her skin and feel that tongue against hers. Trina moaned in response and pressed her hand against Kendall's thigh. Kendall tightened her grip on Trina's wrist, pulling her arm around her waist and lowering her head until their lips were only millimeters apart. As she leaned in to close the distance, the sound of a small group of gabbing ladies entering their area of the locker room caused her to pull back. In a flash, Trina's hands were off her body, and the space between them felt cavernous. That's all you get. You got to get the book.
Yay! Yay! Way to start us out. And if that reading didn't wake everybody up this morning, I don't know what will. Okay, let's move on now, and we're going to hear from Sandra.
Hello, everyone. I'm Sandra Barret. I'm an author with Bedazzled Inc., and I write science fiction and fantasy. Today, I'm going to be reading from Eye of the Damned, the third book in my science fiction series. In this series, humanity has split into two factions, the Terrans and the Novans, and they've been at war for decades. We're going to join the story where Kay, a Terran clone in the Novan military, is about to meet her girlfriend's grandmother, who happens to be the matriarch of one of the most powerful Novan families. Manji stared at her. Who are you? Kay. An affectation. Kay stared at the spot on the far wall where a moving seascape image hung over a flower pedestal. I'm gene line designate KDTU 02128, fourth generation. And why are you here, clone? At Colonel Nassim Nomani's request, sir. Nomani, another affectation. Manji huffed as she started a slow circuit around Kay. Kay gritted her teeth, but remained at silent military attention. What was the woman after? If she was anything like Ayan, she knew everything there was to know about Kay already, possibly even more, if she dug into records not available to Ayan. You have no training, Manji said. I've been in military service since I was 8. A bit of a stretch since she started with an extended 2-year boot camp for those unlucky enough to have no other option but the war. And what did that teach you about protection, surveillance, countermeasures to protect my granddaughter? Medals for close contact fighting and marksmanship. I have survived longer than any other in my gene line. That was a gem Ayan had shared with her during her months in rehab. And I kept Ayan alive on our last mission. All before this, Manji's cane whipped up and slapped Kay's left arm. The sting traveled down to her whitening knuckles of her clenched fist. Obviously, the old bat did her research if she knew about Kay's tremors already. Manji stopped her circuit in front of Kay. What stops me from ordering my god Barkri to kill you right now? Nothing, Kay shrugged, letting go some of the tension. The woman was baiting her. Kay had years of experience with that one. You've owned my life since I was created. Me? You, your family, the Nasane autonomy, take your pick. Sarah. Surly was one thing, but outright insubordination could end her in a coffin. And Ayan? Kay flinched but lowered her gaze. Nothing to give overt offense. She caught Manji's smile out of the corner of her eye. The old bat was enjoying this. Bitterness, Manji said. Freedom, then. What if I grant you honorable discharge from the service, full Novan citizenship? Sweat trickled down Kay's back. That would be unexpected. But you will take it. Manji walked back to the staircase where her guard waited. It wasn't a question, but Kay answered anyway. Yes, sir. And you will leave here. A grin tugged at Kay's lips. When Ayan does, yes. The tip of the cane struck down on the marble step, sounding like a gunshot. Enough of this. Manji turned to her guard. Bakri, find my troublesome granddaughter in her quarters in the south wing. Slit her throat. Kay's gaze shot up. The guard was older but well-armed and already heading away. Kay launched herself for the only weapon within her reach, the old lady's cane. With her left hand ready to shove the crazy old bitch to the stairs, she grabbed for the cane with her right hand. A surprise spin from Manji moved the cane out of her grasp. It was followed by a dizzying flip, and Kay's head cracked hard on the step. Manji stood over her with the black tip of the cane gone to show a hidden laser cutter. It would cut through bone and flesh like hot knife through butter. Kay froze in place, trying to make sense of what just happened and failing. Bakri was at Manji's side with no sign of surprise or expression change at all. Manji stared down at her. No one in this household goes unarmed. No one. She stepped back. How was her reaction time, Bakri? His voice came out in a baritone rasp. Reasonable. Reasonable will end up with my granddaughter in an early grave. Manji replaced the tip to her cane. Stand up, child. Kay felt the back of her head for blood, but her hand came away clean. She got to her feet, not sure what to think, other than Ayan's family was completely nuts. Your order to kill Ayan? Manji waved her cane. Simple reaction time test. I thought you'd react better to my original threat to have you killed. Kay straightened out her clothes. Sorry to disappoint. Hardly, Manji said, turning her back to Kay. You show promise. It's the only reason you're still alive. Batshit crazy and leading a multi-planetary autonomy with the largest military establishment in Novan space. How did Ayan end up in a family like this? For once, Kay was glad she had no crazy relatives to deal with. Are the tests done now? Only beginning, child. Only beginning. She turned around to face Kay. Twice a day, every day, you will come to my quarters and train with Bakri. You will do this until he and I think you are fit for the position you wheedled your way into, and until you can overcome that, she said with a final wave of her cane at Kay's hand. Kay's tremor grew from a shaking hand until she was clenching her messed up left arm to her chest. Weakness wasn't a good thing, not in this household. Thank you.
Well done. Yay. Go science fiction fantasy. Okay. Thank you so much. We're now going to move on to the daring duo that is Lily Charles. Make sure you unmute.
Hello, I'm Charlene Ball, and I'm half of Lily Charles. I have published one other novel with She Writes Press. It was entitled Dark Lady, and it's about Shakespeare's lover in the sonnets. I am a former academic, and I'm looking forward to reading to you today.
Hi, I'm Libby Ware. I have published one book before with She Writes Press. It's called Lum. It's about an intersex woman living in Appalachia in the 1930s. And I am a book dealer, antiquarian book dealer, as is Charlene. And so we thought it would be very interesting to write a series of bibliomysteries about the rare book world. And so we're going to read from chapter 1. It's called the Molly and Emma Bookseller series. And we're going to read from the beginning where the two women first meet. Chapter 1, Steep Stairs. Molly wasn't a morning person, not by a long shot, but for a book sale, she could jump out of bed before the dew dried. The announcement had read, Estate Sale of Nonagerian. Tons of books, including children's cookbooks, leather, and a signed first edition of Gone with the Wind. Molly knew that antique dealers, as well as book dealers, would be lining up for Gone with the Wind. Not her, though. She'd be checking out the rest of the tonnage. And she'd had good luck in the Sherwood Forest area of Atlanta. As soon as she turned on the Friar Tuck Way, she saw a line of vans pulled up along the street. Please let me be in the first 25, she wished. The women who ran these estate sales only let 25 people in at a time. Hurrying down the driveway in front of the yellow brick ranch house, she saw a knot of dealers. A short, dark-haired woman came down the walk, pulling a rolling cart behind her. Molly remembered seeing her at the St. Pete Book Fair. Then she groaned. Buck Hubble, wearing a wide-shouldered tan travel jacket and carrying several tote bags, trotted behind the woman, trying to overtake her so he'd be ahead in line. As a woman came up behind her, Molly said, "Hi, I'm Molly. I think we met in St. Pete, but I don't remember your name." "Emma Clark." She quickly stepped sideways closer to Molly, pulling her rolling cart in front of her and thus cutting off Buck, who had tried to push between them. He scowled and stood close behind Emma, clutching his empty tote bags. Molly turned her attention back to Emma. Female sellers were rare, so she was happy to meet her. "St. Pete, your first book fair?" "Yes, I've been collecting for years, and after looking around my house and decided they were taking over, I decided it was time to make room for more books." Molly laughed. "I think a lot of us start out as collectors." Buck wandered to the house to look in the windows. Molly said in an undertone, "Watch out for that guy. He's a known book thief." "A book thief?" Molly nodded. "Buck Hubble. I call him Bucky Burglar. He's a pain at library sales. He'll dig under tables when it's not allowed, and I've seen him go behind bookstore counters. In fact, he's been banned from some of Atlanta's finest bookstores." "I'm new to estate sales. How do they work?" "Well, you have to stand in line in the order you arrived. Everyone knows that and will tell you to move back if you try to get in ahead of them. When the door opens precisely at 10 o'clock, they let in 25 people at a time and then shut the door." "Do they ever let anyone in early?" "Never, not even in snow and sleet. Once you get in, make a mad dash to where the books are. They may be all over the house or in the library, the basement, or upstairs. If you see something you think you want, don't hesitate. Grab first, examine later. That's why it's good to bring lots of tote bags." Emma nodded. "What kind of books are you interested in?" "Occult, cookbooks, books about books, illustrated." "Occult, that's astrology, witchcraft, stuff like that?" "Right. Also spiritualism. I've got some Blavatsky, Annie Besant, and a beautiful illustrated volume on Rosicrucians by Arthur Waite. I even named one of my dogs Blavatsky." Emma frowned. Molly wondered if it was because of Molly's interest in occult or in reaction to the mention of a dog. "What do you sell?" "Children's, a few illustrated classics. So I overlap with you a bit." The door opened and dealers started to file in, Molly and Emma among them. Maisie sat at a small table inside, counting them as they passed. "Books?" Molly asked. 13, to the left and everywhere. 14, 15. Buck pushed past them both. Molly planted herself in front of a shelf and began filling her bags. Later, she would check to see if they were first editions or signed. Out of the corner of her eye, she saw Emma kneeling at a low shelf and stuffing books into a large bag in her rolling cart. Dark gray-streaked hair screening her face. "She's cute," thought Molly. Then she scolded herself. "She's probably straight with those shoes." Emma wore thin-soled ballet-type flats. Molly glanced down at her own all-terrain sandals with satisfaction. She stepped into the hallway, looking for more bookshelves, when she noticed a door, slightly ajar, with a sign reading, "Do not enter." She started in the direction of the kitchen, intent on cookbooks, when she heard a muffled scream. Molly jerked her head up as Emma Clark burst through the door and collided with her. Molly gently disentangled herself from Emma, who seemed distraught. "What's the matter? You look like you've seen a ghost." Emma shook her head. "No, not a ghost. The real thing. Maybe someone's dead. Come look." "Someone's dead? Come on." The door led, as Molly had suspected, down to the basement. The steps were steep and not quite wide enough for the length of a foot. A bare bulb at the foot of the stairs gave a dim light. She followed Emma carefully, placing her sandals sideways and feeling with her hand on the rough framing and drywall as there was no rail. "Look," Emma urged, tugging at her sleeve. Molly glanced down and gasped. A man lay crumpled on the floor, a few feet away from the stairs, right in front of the shelves. On his back, he lay very still. His tan travel jacket was open, revealing many inside pockets, all filled with books. Books were spilling out of bags and more were scattered about. A dark pool was spreading out from under his head. Some of the books had been spattered. "Oh my God," whispered Molly. "It's Buck Hubble." And this is a copy of Murder at the Estate Sale. This is our cover. Thank you all very much.
Yay! Well done. Leave us on the edge of our seats. The perfect thing for a mystery. Okay, so now let's hear from Clare Ashton.
Hi, I'm Clare Ashton, and that was a great reading. I really want to read the rest of that murder. By the way, I'm totally distracted from my reading. Hi, I'm Clare Ashton, and I'm an indie author of romances and mysteries, and I'm reading today from my romance, Finding Jessica Lambert. It's about an under pressure movie star who runs away and takes a break while promoting in London. Jess is taken in by a more mature and reclusive Anna, who doesn't recognize the fantasy sci-fi film star. The two quickly bond during this brief respite for Jess, who enjoys being herself and unknown, at least for a little while, before she has to leave London. In turn, Anna's also removed herself from society, and it's been a long time since her last relationship. But she finds herself peculiarly open to and charmed by Jess. This scene is a little way in, where Anna meets up with her best friend, the irrepressible Penny, after Jess's last visit. Anna smiled a lot, and she knew exactly why, and that made her grin more. She caught herself before stepping inside Zara's coffee house to meet Pen for breakfast. She pursed her lips, attempting to appear serious, but her mouth twitched, and she couldn't stop her whole face lifting. Was she imagining it, or were her cheeks rosy? She checked her face with the back of her fingers. Yes, she radiated heat. Afterglow was written all over her face, and Penny would know exactly what the glow was after. But Penny was flapping when Anna entered the cafe. She heard her first and found her best friend and daughter at their favourite booth by the window. Bibbs was sitting in a wooden high chair pulled up to the end of the table, a ring of Turkish simit bread brandished in one hand and something squelchy in the other. "Stop squeezing that egg, Bibbs," Penny snapped. Oh, that was it. Vaguely yellow mush was emerging from in between Bibbs's fingers. The girl seemed unperturbed by her mother's fussing and looked up to say, "Banner." "Hello, lovely girl." Anna stroked the toddler's wispy hair and kissed her on the forehead. She risked egg all over her clothes, but she wasn't missing out on a cuddle from her favourite kiddo. "Sorry," Penny blustered. "We started without you. Bibbs was wailing and we couldn't wait." Penny was behaving as if she had the most cantankerous, demanding child on the planet, while Bibbs sat quietly getting on with the business of being a toddler. "Banner wants some," Bibbs said, and spread out her yellow fingers, accompanied by another little squelch. Anna smiled. "No, thank you, Bibbs." Penny tugged a bib that resembled a mini raincoat onto the child, seemingly a little after the fact, but Anna didn't want to point that out. "Oh, God," Penny groaned. "We've been up since 4. It's not like we spent much of that before sleeping." That would explain Pen's grouchiness. "What's up?" Anna said, sliding into the booth seat. "Bibbs is snotty again." That would account for the nasal Banner greeting. "And she's been having these night terrors." Penny fussed and tugged at the bib. "I'm trying to pass off these dark rings under my eyes as smudged up makeup after a good night out, rather than a terrible night in sharing a bed with a toddler." "Any idea what's causing the nightmares?" "No," Pen replied, relaxing as a popper button finally snapped into place. "Oh, poor pumpkin," she said with genuine sympathy. "I wish I could see what was going on in that little head." And she kissed Bibbs on the forehead, while the toddler obliviously licked food off her hands. "Right." Penny sighed and plopped down onto the booth seat opposite, and at last focused her attention on Anna. Penny's mouth dropped and continued to widen until it peaked at maximum stretch. It was accompanied with an excited and indignant inhalation. "You got laid! It's written all over your face!" It was written all over her face, and now that it was heightened with a blush, it was written in bold. "Who got laid?" Zara sidled up with an order pad. She abandoned the pad on the table and shuffled her bottom next to Anna. "You got laid? Was nothing secret in this world for long." "So?" Pen said, eyes as wide as her mouth. "Yes, I saw her again last night." "And?" "Well, let's just say she was still here this morning." Anna sat back, relieved that she'd managed a tasteful answer. "And?" "Oh, come on," Pen tutted. "She managed to stay 2 other nights and show a disgusting amount of platonic behaviour, so..." Did she really have to do this? "You're definitely glowing." Apparently she did. "That grin of yours stretches from ear to ear." "It's true," Zara added. "And," Penny said with finality. You walked in here with your titties thrust out like weapons of mass seduction. Penny shook her own bosom for good measure. I did not. Why did Penny do this to her? Did too? Oh, come on, I get to spend the night with a tiny snot monster. I want to live vicariously at least. Okay, Anna smiled. She couldn't bring herself to use Penny's diction and answered succinctly with, yes. I knew it! Penny punched the air. And the Mayhew had sex! Jesus, Pen. Zara chuckled beside her. Oh, I've missed your morning after conversations.
Yay! Oh my gracious, that was fun. Almost as fun to watch as to hear, I've gotta say. Okay, everybody, let's have all the authors. Everybody come back on. And I'll even scare the audience and I'll come on too. Okay, hi everybody. Thank you so much for those delightful readings this morning or this afternoon, Claire. It was a really great way to start the day. The afternoon session has a high bar to leap over after you guys, so that's outstanding. So everybody, remember, if you've got questions for our esteemed panel of authors, by all means put those into the Q&A. And we will get to those as we can. But in the meantime, I have some questions as well for everybody. So yeah, you tell them, Fiona. So let me go ahead and start with my first question. And Fiona, since I mentioned your name, I'm just going to start with you because I'm feisty that way. What was your favorite game as a child?
Clue, hands down.
Why?
You know, I grew up reading fiction. I grew up reading mysteries. I read a lot of like the 10 Little Indians, and I read all that. Was my favorite genre, and that's obviously all I read until I was in high school, which is what's funny that I write romance. So for me, I love like the Hercule Poirot. I loved all that. I loved to get involved in mystery. So Clue for me was a way to be engaged with like my friends and my sibling, and also like figure out who killed Mr. Body. I mean, who doesn't want to do that?
Okay, yeah, this is true. How did you feel about the movie? Is that like a must-see for you, or did it disappoint you?
Oh, no way. It's awesome. Cult classic. I mean, 3 endings like that. I saw it in theaters. And I watched it every year. It's one of my absolute favorites. I mean, who doesn't love Madeline Kahn and like the flames on the side of my face?
Yeah.
Like, it's the most iconic quote for all times. Like, absolutely.
Yeah. Okay, excellent. Libby and Charlene, how about you two? Favorite game as a child? It could be board game, outdoor game. What kind of game did you guys like as children?
Well, gosh, I didn't play very many games. I mainly read, and I played it by myself because I was an only child. So I played makeup games outside and inside. With
Okay.
Trees were my props and my co-stars. And so were dolls. I had dolls. I read books.
Okay.
Yeah, I liked Monopoly, and I liked Scrabble. Although I had 2 sisters that were older than me, so I always lost. And I still have the Scrabble game where I wrote on the cover, "Scrabble is a stupid game," because obviously I had lost. And I thought I was going to trick everybody because I took a pen and I scribbled on one side of the blank. So then when it was laying down, I'd know to pick it, like nobody else would figure that out.
Okay, great. Claire, how about you?
Outside generally, I grew up in the countryside, so I was playing in mud when I was little, etc. And generally arsing about outside with friends was kind of one of my favorite things. Indoor games, cards with my grandparents who lived just down the road. So I'd go and visit them every Saturday afternoon, stay the night, and they would teach me poker and inadvisable games like that for a child. But absolutely my favorite thing.
Okay, excellent. Note to self, never play poker with Claire. She'll kick your butt. Okay, and Sandra, how about you?
Okay, this is gonna have to need a little explanation because it's a made-up game, and we used to call it tinfoil ball. And where it came about is I come from a large family, and my mother got sick of us all in the house. So it was after like a Sunday dinner, she took the tinfoil from the top of a roast, just squished it all into a ball, and said, "Go out and play with this." So we took it outside and we created this game. It was basically just like tag, but with the tinfoil ball. So you would run around and you would try to hit somebody with it. And of course, I mean, it's tinfoil, it doesn't hurt, it's about that big. And then if you got hit, you picked it up and you ran around and you tagged somebody else with it. And we played that for well into our teen years. We played tinfoil ball outside. Different tinfoil balls, but she started to have to collect them because eventually you'd lose them and she'd have to make us another one.
Okay, I'm suddenly having flashbacks to like junior high school and having to play dodgeball. Woo. Okay, excellent. So now let's, Sandra, we're going to stay with you as long as we're here. So what was your inspiration for this particular book? Where did the idea come from?
It's kind of, it does bring together pieces of the prior two books. And I don't want to give too many spoilers, but one book had a very Terran focus. That I mentioned that the humanity split into two factions. The Terrans chose to augment themselves with technology, whereas the Novans decided to augment themselves with genetic modifications. So they kind of went their separate ways in that sense. First book was Terran focused, second book was more Novan focused, and this third one decided, let's bring them together and see what happens. And that's kind of where it all came together.
Okay. So if we go back to that first book then in the series, where'd you come up with that idea to begin with?
I'm kind of dating the first book, but there was this whole post-human thing going on. People were talking about this whole idea, in like 5-7 years ago about how people would, at the time when like little Fitbits started coming around, people were like, oh, we could start doing this. We could put them under their skin. And this idea of transhumanism or post-humanism of we are not the same as our ancestors. We are changing ourselves. And CRISPR technology where you can go in and genetically modify. I mean, at the time they were only talking about genetically modifying, babies in the womb, so to speak. But that's kind of where it all came from. It's like, well, what if we take these two tracks and just keep going into the future with it? And what do we end up with? Okay,
interesting. Claire, how about you? Where did Finding Jessica Lambert come from?
It was the inspiration of the character was a photograph I saw of the pop star Rihanna. It was taken, I think it was in Paris or something, and it was taken from inside her car. And the car was surrounded by fans on the outside, like faces peering in, hands on there. And then I thought, bloody hell, that looks terrifying. I really wouldn't want to be famous for any amount of money. So and I thought, well, actually, how about that? Huge star. Actually, I went for actress because that's just kind of where my interests lie more. Who really hates that publicity side and runs away in London, which I'm more familiar with.
Okay. So everybody, we get Claire to come to Albuquerque next year, and then when she drives up to the hotel, we all rush the car that she's in. Okay, let's all do that and see how that goes. Fiona, how about you? Where'd your book come from?
This is the start of a second series. So I wrote the Perfect Match series. This is the start of the High Stakes Romance series. So this whole world focuses on luxury real estate. I have it take place in Boston. I live in Boston. For me, I love the excess and the fabulousness and the ludicrousy of like the high-end penthouse sales. I love like, you know, all those real estate shows. I just think it's just so much humor and drama in that world. That it's hard to take people too seriously. Everyone has like some sort of a chip on their shoulder. There's a lot of drama and characteristic in it. So I started a series about one specific realtor office, Gamble and Associates. And this is the first book in the series of 3 books. So the second book just came out May 1st. So it's out there now. So you can get that too.
Okay. Great. And Libby and Charlene, how about you guys? Where did Murder at the Estate Sale come from?
So as I mentioned, we are both antiquarian book dealers, and we go to book fairs, and you know, so we've met a lot of people. And at first we started thinking, well, wouldn't it be interesting just to write about the antiquarian book world and, you know, these different characters who we've met, and then we thought, oh, it'd be great to have a mystery. And we talked about it for years before we actually started writing it. And so our idea is to have different aspects of places that book dealers go. So for example, the first one, Murder at the Estate Sale, you know, a lot of dealers, you know, they'll get books when they go to estate sales. And then our second book in the series, which we're now in the editing phase of, is called Murder at the Book Fair. And that one, so anyway, the first one takes place in Atlanta, and which is where we live. And then the second one at the book fair is going to be in St. Petersburg, Florida. And so you'll get a lot of descriptions of Florida and the towns around St. Petersburg. And then, you know, so each book will be set, you know, with a different aspect, you know, like might be death at the library sale, or death at the writer's retreat, you know. So we don't really have plans as far as how many we're going to write, because we also both have other historical fiction that we write. So
Okay.
that's kind of how we got the idea for it.
Yeah, and I'd just like to add that she's been a bookseller for years and years. And I was in the academic world, in the academic racket, as I was doing administration until I retired. And so really got to working on this this book together when we both retired from our jobs. And it just kind of grew, you know, and we weren't terribly serious about it at first, because we would go to this twice a year women's lesbian writing conference, and we'd say, oh, we got to write a chapter for the book. We got to read it at the conference. Then we'd read it at the conference. Then we'd write some more. And so we finally said, we're going to write this book. So we did. And we sat down and we wrote it, and we actually thought we could do it. And so before that, she had published one book, and I had published the historical novel. And then this came to be like a book about the world of booksellers, and also about us, because there's a romance that develops in it between Monty and Emma, and it develops very slowly, you know, because they're both reluctant to get in. You'll find this out when you read the book. They're both reluctant to get into a relationship. And then they, by the end of the book, they're kind of at one. They're kind of ready to almost, because they've been in relationships before, and they're kind of a little bit shy of all that, but they grow on each other, so to speak. So that's something about it, something about us.
Okay, great. Everybody had a chance to answer that question, right? Yes. Okay, good. All right, from the Q&A, okay, there are two for here for you, Claire, and one of them's really kind of short, and so I'm just going to ask you both. First of all, you read a lot to the kids, don't you? Because this was a very immersive experience. Is that true?
Me, yes. No, I adore reading to the kids. It's they're 8 and 10 now, and they show no signs of wanting to stop stories for bedtime, and I love it. I'll do all the voices, you know, and if they see somebody reading on the telly, they're just appalled if they don't do the voices and the full theatrics, frankly. So it's, you know, I get a lot of practice. So you'll get the whole performance, I'm afraid.
Okay. And then the next one, she says, your dialogue is so snappy. Do you have a process for planning it, or do you write it just kind of more extemporaneously as you're going?
Was that me again? Sorry.
Yes, it is.
I tend to hear little. Most of my writing's done away from actually writing it down. It's always when I'm washing up or I'm shopping or on my way to get the kids from school. So I tend to think of just bits of snippets of dialogues, and I just have to write it down there and then. So I'll be kind of thinking through a scene, and it'll come out, and I will just have to write things up. My books are a big pile of scrap paper. That's my first draft, really, all those notes. So, and then I might refine it. Oh, and I do. My last draft of a book is always just read it out loud, just to make sure it flows and feels natural, I think. So I think that's my process anyway.
Okay. All right. Great. Now, this next question is for everybody, but we're going to start with Libby and Charlene answering it. Do you tend to take observation notes in your surroundings throughout your day when you're not at the desk?
I don't a lot, but I do notice and observe things, and I know I draw on what I've seen because I love to take walks and just sort of look around me and watch people, and I think a lot of that does find its way into my writing. I should take notes. That would be really a good thing to do. Yeah. I used to a long time ago, and I haven't done it since. I used to back when I was younger and was writing. I don't know.
Okay.
I think that I notice people more, and I don't necessarily take notes. And like Charlene, it's one of those shoulds. Actually, we met this interesting woman. We were in St. Augustine, and there's this Native American village there, and we started talking to the docent there, and she was sitting down, and we were talking, and she was very informative. And then she said, "Oh, my baby is hungry," and she reached into her blouse, and I was like, "Oh my God, does she have a baby under there?" And she put a tiny possum. Let me put my hand up so people can see a tiny possum. And I just thought, oh my God, how fascinating. I should go and write that down, because we were just like astounded. What is she going to pull out when she reached? Because she had kind of like, thing over her blouse. It's like, what in the world is she going to pull out of there? So yeah, when I see interesting characters like that, it's like, I should write that down, or at least, make a mental note. Somewhere somebody's going to have to pull a possum out of their bosom.
Not me. Don't volunteer me. Okay.
There's a sentence you probably didn't expect to hear this Saturday. Okay. Claire, you kind of sort of answered this a little bit about dialogue, but can you expand a little bit on this now, just in general, rather than just dialogue?
So I've lost track of the question. Sorry.
You already hit the wine. She's on to the wine.
Not about. Do you tend to take observation notes in your surroundings throughout your day when you're not at your writing desk?
Not of the sort of factual kind of exactly what happened, but sort of things around me will inspire things all the time. Little snippets of dialogue or a character. So though I won't literally write down something might have happened or a phrase, they will trigger lots of things, and I'll write it down. I make story notes for all kinds of stories all the time, because I'm horribly forgetful. I even forgot what the question was during that 30 seconds. So I have to write everything down.
Okay. Sandra, how about you?
So for me, the thing that I kind of have to do is, because my settings are all made up, I actually have to try to focus on something other than visual, because I'm very visually oriented. So I noticed when Fiona was doing her reading, there was senses there. There was the smell of the lotion and other things. And I'm like, that's what, when I kind of go through the rewrite, not the first draft, but the second, I have to go in and start. That's where I start to, when I'm going around my daily life, I'm like, what am I doing besides seeing? What am I hearing? What am I smelling? What's the sense of touch? So it's kind of less making notes along the way, more a a part of the writing after the first draft is to start to focus on senses. And that's when I start to say, okay, I noticed, when I'm sitting in a chair too long, it's uncomfortable. Those kind of things I have to work into the story second time around.
Okay. Great, thanks. And Fiona.
So for me, I love people. I'm an extrovert by nature, if you couldn't tell. So I like to be around people, and I know, shocker, right? So in this book is the start of a series, so it's a world building, but I write contemporary romance, so it's current day. So for me, it's important to make sure I involve, social media and involve Starbucks if you're, stateside, and do the things that kind of draw in like the natural surroundings of things like taste and smells, like Sandra was saying. For me, I think that adds depth. In my particular writing, I love a really good found family. So all my books have a good found family, good best friends, someone to be a sounding board for. So it's really important for me to have those conversations like Claire was talking about, like snippets of this, or morning meeting with your best friend or your girlfriend, like, drags you under the bus for getting laid last night. Like that kind of stuff just adds humor and depth to characters. And I think it's more real life. So I certainly do observational stuff when I'm out and about, when I'm observing people, a little harder in the pandemic since everyone's sort of sure. But there's certainly some characteristics and personalities that are over the top, or something that's, like I said, a little more dramatic or more funny or playful. Not enough to put a possum in my shirt, but surely enough to chime a thought process. Like, I need a bad guy. I need an annoying boss in this book. I think that'd be the perfect, perception for this Jefferson Sharkney. I think he needs to be a real Weasley looking kind of guy, and kind of sneaky with beady eyes. Like that's something that I see, this guy crossing the street that I may have stored to memory. For me, it's more living in the day and pulling in day-to-day stuff, because the stuff I write is contemporary.
Okay, excellent. So now I need to ask, what's next? So congratulations, you're finalists for Goldie. Yay! You can't rest on your laurels. So what's coming down, next for you? What's on the horizon, and what can these fabulous audience members expect from you? And we're going to start with Sandra.
I'm actually, the next thing I want to do is I want to get into urban fantasy. So I've got this series idea that involves starting out with necromancers, and if it all goes well, I'll start bringing in other supernatural, magical type people, but in a real world setting, so that I get to put those Starbucks in there. And it's exciting because it's different for me. I haven't done this before, so that's kind of where I'm going next. Okay,
fun challenge for you. Yeah. Claire, how about you? What's coming down on the horizon? What can we expect?
Quite a change from the last one, actually. I was having a lot of trouble settling on. I do a lot of contemporary romances, but I have real trouble during the pandemic, like contemporary stories now. That's tough. I found it really difficult. So actually, I ended up for the first time that I've written a historical, well, it's kind of not quite in the historical category, but I've gone back to 1970s. It's a mystery, and it's set in Wales, because I was missing Wales horribly, because you weren't even allowed to visit Wales during some of the last of the year. So that's how I've coped with writing in the pandemic, is just not write it at another time and somewhere else. So yeah, a mystery this time in 1970s.
Excellent. That sounds like fun. Libby and Charlene, what's up for you guys?
Well, I'm working on a historical novel at the moment, another historical, set in the Tudor era, Henry VIII times, about a woman who was a reformer, a religious reformer, and at the time when it was really dangerous to be in such a situation. It's called The Ballad of the Duchess, and that title may change, but anyway, she's a titled woman who gets in trouble. I'll just say it that way. And there's they're all historical characters, and they're real people, and I love doing research, and trying to make it lively is one of the things that I like to do.
Okay.
Well, and as I mentioned, and actually while Charlene's writing historical. I've been revising and editing Murder at the Book Fair. And so then after we do that, well, there's this 19th century historical that I wrote, and it's already too long, but I want to add in a lot about this woman getting involved in the suffrage movement. And so I'm going to have to, cut a lot of the earlier chapters that I wrote so that I can, get into what I think might end up being kind of the meat of the novel, because I'm, really interested in that era and women being activists in that time period.
Okay, great. And Fiona.
Oh, so I was just reading from Bet Against Me, which is the first book in the high stakes romance series. It came out in September. The sequel to, or the second book in the series, not a sequel, they're standalones, is about Trina's best friend. And this is Lauren's book. This just came out. And this is called Bet the Farm. That came out about 2 weeks ago. And the third book in the series will be out in September. I'm going to wrap this series up real tight in a year. So it's going to follow the owner of the company, Ellison Gamble. So if you liked the first book, the second book is Lauren's story, and she is funny and quirky and a little kinky, but mostly really funny and quirky and into numbers. So definitely take a look at that. It's a fun series to read.
Okay. And what's the title of the third book?
The third book is called Beginner's Bet. So it's Bet Against Me, and then it's Bet the Farm, and then it's Beginner's Bet. It's a high stakes romance series, so you got to have a bet in there somewhere.
You got to have betting. Okay, great. Now we have literally 3 minutes left. So if you've got a question, throw it in there. But I have a funny feeling if you haven't asked it yet, we're probably not going to get to it. So I want to kind of wrap things up at this point by saying, thank you all so much for taking the time out of your weekend to come here, to join us, to share your work. It's amazing. I want to say congratulations yet once again on being named a Goldie finalist. Tell you what, these judges this year, they were discerning judges, so good on you. And remind everybody that our conference is coming up in July. It's going to be 4 weekends in July, starting with the 9th, and it'll be Friday, Saturday, Sunday for the 4 weekends in July. Registration is still open, so come register, come join us. Please come to the awards ceremony. That should be a fun night. I hope we're going to have standing room only. And if you really want to stand in your house in your pajamas, go for it. But, sit back, relax, have some popcorn, maybe a glass of wine. But again, thank you so much, everybody, for taking your time. Audience members, thank you for being here and supporting these wonderful authors. I put links to their books in the chat, so make sure you click those links and buy those books and support the people who bring us so much entertainment every day of the year. We really appreciate it. Thank you so much, everybody. Have a great day.
Bye. Thanks for having us.
Ooh, everybody waving.
Bye.
That's so cute. Okay. And be on the lookout on YouTube for the video. This is all being recorded. Haha. Okay. Have a good weekend. Bye-bye now.